All right, good morning. Both me and my dog are up because a lot of high frequencies outside. I could feel occasional warmth come through, and I know she's been working through that mass that's underneath her belly, and so she's been going through the energetic releases. No seizures, but she does lose some of her ability to hold in the pee. She can't help it because she's going through the process, and I have to deal with it, and it's fine. I would never, when someone's sick, like they have any kind of sickness, you don't put down a person who is sick. Like, they go through a process, and some processes take longer than others. But as long as they're maintaining their usual eating and sleeping and going to the bathroom, you know, when they're up and they're going to the door to let me know they're eating their bones like my dog does, I don't see any reason why someone put something on drugs, or why I would put down any animal that goes through a process. Okay, so, you know, I'm thank gosh I understand what's going on, and so I just have the patience. I'll do more laundry than I need to. Okay, so until my dog gets through that mass that's coming out of her body at this point in little bits and pieces. And so, all right, so about immune suppression. So this is what I've been writing. I was writing last night, and of course I'm energetic. The frequencies are up. I feel it. Hey, Robert. And so I was up writing last night about VACC, okay? And let me tell you, writing about the VACC is such a weird thing, because there's been so much there's been so much trauma around it when you talk about it, and you're afraid to talk about it because someone's gonna, you know, come after you, like on the internet, and say, oh, you're bad for saying anything about it, against it, or for it. And you're just like, you know, so you're in kind of this PTSD about writing it. I mean, not me, because I have to really understand what's going on here. And so then everything, it can be traced back to the laws of thermodynamics, closed systems versus open systems. And it's not as literal as people make it seem, because they don't understand thermodynamically. Open systems means that you have, well, an open system and a person who lives indefinitely that is extremely healthy and well balanced. Well, an open system means that you're taking in stuff, feeling the environment, and has an immune system that will process the information and then distribute the proteins, and when necessary, then you have to get, you know, hawk it out and cough it out and blow it out, and then you're fine. And so, and then you also are pooping and peeing and everything else. Okay, and so then you don't have the cancer, disease, and chronic illness and autoimmune disorders. Come on, sure. All right, there you go. Okay, so in an open system, open systems, you wouldn't get disease because your system would be open enough for you to take in the information and then also release it. And then you have the necessary defenses, okay, to help you release stuff and also convert proteins into something that's beneficial, not deadly to you. But in a closed system, this is where I realize this is what the medical holistic system is predicated upon. It's predicated upon a closed system, which means all the different drugs and remedies and therapies suppress your immune system. And that means suppress your ability to release. And that is by the use of drugs and therapies. Okay, and it could be Mucinex and NyQuil, and it could also be Imodium AD, stopping you from diarrhea. It could be cannabis, cannabinoids, anti-inflammatories, turmeric and honey and apple cider vinegar used as a remedy to stop inflammation. And so when they have closed your system, they have suppressed your immune system, then it suppresses your Tregs. Your Tregs are supposed to regulate, so that way it goes after infection. It allows the body to go after anything that causes infection. And so you wouldn't get tumors. Okay? Because the reason why you wouldn't get tumors is because whatever it goes after doesn't agglutinate. But in a closed system, you could have the Tregs and anti-inflammatories, have the inflammation, which everybody's afraid of, cause all the proteins to galvanize, and then and then cause tumors, right? Because in a closed system, it's not releasing. So what else are these proteins going to do? They're going to go and coagulate and turn into a tumor or a teratoma. Okay, so let me read this so I can make sure I'm speaking this correctly, because this is some concepts that I have to, in this section about, I call it born to live or born to die. That's that's the chapter that has the Tregs and the Bregs, because it literally is, are you born to live or you're born to die? And some people are born to die and some people are born to live. So an open system versus a closed system is why immune suppression is deadly in a closed system. Jesus Christ. I hate when this happens. Okay. Okay. So, okay. Let me read this. Key points. Regulatory Treg cells are essential for maintaining peripheral tolerance, preventing autoimmunity. Okay, so it goes after it stops the cycle of attacking, because once it attacks the infection, there's no reason to attack that specific organ anymore that's being protected. Okay, so Treg cells are essential for maintaining peripheral tolerance, preventing autoimmunity, and limiting chronic inflammatory disease. However, they also limit beneficial response by suppressing sterilizing immunity and limiting anti-tumor immunity. So why would there be a tumor when something like a Treg is able to express itself, because it's not allowed to release? So once that Treg goes in and attacks something and causes it attacks something, and then probably it doesn't cause apoptosis, but it attacks it. But it has to be carried out. There's T cells that actually are natural killer T cells that cause the apoptosis, but the regular Tregs are limiting. They calm down and they limit the chronic inflammatory. So it goes through autophagy, but it doesn't get destroyed. So see, this is where I have to work this out. And so it stays in the body in a closed system, and so they also limit beneficial responses by suppressing sterilizing immunity. Now, what is sterilizing immunity? Okay, so these are some concepts that we have to learn. Sterilizing immunity means an individual can no longer be infected or infect others. Reach a certain percentage of threshold of this immunity in a population of 95% for the measles, and transmission comes to halt and the virus is eliminated. So limiting by suppressing sterilizing immunity. And so you're suppressing the ability to release. See, when you eliminate the virus, you don't eliminate it, you just keep it inside. And so in a lower frequency environment, okay, you can eliminate all the communicable diseases because people are not communicating it because they're under some kind of immune suppression, immunotherapy, or drugs or whatever, right? But when you raise the frequencies and you have an even more of aggressive virus in the environment, now all bets are fucking off. Now they're going to go and try to do the same thing they did before in a different environment with the new immunotherapy. But then we're seeing that people have closed systems. And so I'm going to explain this. Let me just go back and just cycle back real quick so I can really get this. Okay? So Tregs are essential for maintaining peripheral tolerance, preventing autoimmunity, and limiting chronic inflammatory diseases. So how do they limit chronic inflammatory diseases? Well, T-regulation, they allow the information to come through, but it induces autophagy. Autophagy is what you call an evolution. It is what strengthens a person. It degrades the cell, yes, but allows it to be built back up with the new information and the food. So that's why autophagy and apoptosis are kind of conjoined, because there's a degradation process that may seem like it's bad, but no, it's actually strengthening the cell. And so you have autophagy versus apoptosis. So Tregs are actually inducing autophagy. And I'm going to find that just to make sure to support that. Tregs induce autophagy. Okay, autophagy in regular T cells. Okay, So T cells induce autophagy, which is a degradation but not an outright death. Okay, that's fine. You have a degradation, but you have to build that cell back up. No different when somebody gets sick and they're degrading, right, for a minute, but then they eat food and their body finally gets back online, and then it takes all the necessary nutrients from the body that's been stored and builds that cell back up after that autophagy, after it's being introduced to a new virus or having to assimilate to a new virus, new information. So then that's fine, okay? And then all that stuff that's been degraded, all that waste material, then supposed to leave the body, right? It's supposed to be filtered out through your mucus. So your mucus holds the waste material from the Treg process, the degradation. But if you have suppressed your immune system with drugs and Mucinex and all of that stuff, where does that waste material go? It agglutinates and turns into then a separate beast. See, this is like what I haven't even worked out, but that's why I have to do these videos, so I got to hear myself. This is the only way I'm going to get this. The only way you guys are going to get this too, because this is very complicated and it's a very intricate step by step. And so I have to speak it. So autophagy and Tregs go hand in hand. They're a good thing. Okay, then there's the regular T cells, which is this induces apoptosis. So Tregs induce autophagy, and then T cells induce apoptosis. Then you have your B cells and your B regs. And okay, that's the B cell memory, but it really is about the T regs and the B regs. And really the T regs and the B regs, they are shaped like a T. Okay? And that's why it looks like the mark of the beast to some people. All right. And so, okay. So when you have a closed system and all that waste material from those cells that were from the autophagic process, and they're not being released 100%, they'll go and gather. It's just like when you have a crowd of people that are trying to compete for Miss America or something, and there's only 100 can be compete, and there's like 1,000. So the 100 can go over here, and they're allowed to go and compete and then do whatever. And the other ones that are the ones that didn't make it, they go and agglutinate somewhere else and hold their own fucking pageant. That's exactly what goes on in the body, is that any waste material that doesn't get released all the way because of a closed system, it gathers, and that's where the tumors. They're not allowed to mature. They weren't allowed to go through the process of maturing. God, this just sounds so allegorical. And so they gather and they turn into cancer. Because why aren't they allowed to mature? Because the immune system has been suppressed. And how do you spread? By you stopping the Tregs. By stopping the Tregs from doing what they need to do, or they're doing what they need to do, but that information is still in the body. And so even though I'm trying to find an analogy. It's like when you're trying to do something, like when you're trying to clean the floor, and then someone behind you is walking on your clean floor with dirty feet. I don't know. Let me look at this again, because I gotta find a way to explain this. Okay, so regular Tregs are essential to maintaining peripheral tolerance, preventing autoimmunity, and limiting chronic inflammatory diseases. And so, yes, it causes degradation. So why would you have an inflammatory disease? Because the cell got upgraded with new information, and so then it attempts, like a COVID, right? And so the cells get targeted by the COVID, the information gets upgraded, then the information, then it causes an autophagy process. The stuff that doesn't belong, that like when you're doing a hostile takeover or a corporate takeover or a merging of two worlds, there's going to be redundancy. So all the redundancy then is left. But what is that redundancy? Does it actually leave the body? Well, in a closed system, it doesn't all the way leave the body. So then that redundancy, that alter ego, that alter world, whatever, alternate universe, then goes and develops its own entity. And that's what the issue is, because let's just see what autophagy is, the actual definition. Autophagy meaning. consumption of the body's own tissues as a metabolic process occurring in starvation and certain diseases. Okay? So yeah, when you're starving yourself, you can induce autophagy, but then how are you building yourself back up? You know, so even though you're releasing stuff that doesn't belong, how are you building yourself back up? And certain diseases. So what's a disease? It's a new entity that's coming in and upgrading. Destruction of damaged or redundant cellular components occurring in vacuoles within the cell. See, redundant. And I said redundancy. So when you have a COVID-19 with very similar characteristics in your stuff, but there's a slight difference. There's just a new idea, like when you have an merging of two companies and one company has to come in and take over, and there's like two HR directors and one HR director has to go, right? So there's got to be only one left. Well, that's going to be pushed to the wayside. Well, where does that one that gets pushed to the wayside, where does that one go? Well, it should leave the body, leave the building, but if it doesn't, and it stays in the building and it goes in and starts like a union or some kind of, aggression, a mutiny or something, then that's what would be cancerous in a company, is when all of your employees that were let go didn't actually leave the building. They just gathered in the basement and wanted to overthrow that whole company. And that's kind of like, holy shit. And so yeah, the redundancy doesn't leave the body. So you can induce autophagy. Which is great. But when all the little waste material doesn't leave the body, then it agglutinates and turns into a second person. And that's like the two-headed monster. That's when you're getting like, weird growths and teratomas, is because you've cloned yourself, because that redundancy doesn't leave. Okay? And that's insane. But see, that's a closed system. In a closed system, you'll have infinite sacred geometry. You'll just keep having parts of yourself keep springing, different heads. You might have 50 million heads. I mean, I don't think that's ever going to happen, because that would be crazy, and that would be too much suffering. That'd be too confusing. Oh my God, this is so crazy. And so if you open up your alimentary canal and have an open system, you wouldn't have to worry about tumors. Okay? And so, but see, that's the thing, is and so yeah, regulatory T cells and transplant. Yeah, when you have a transplant and you're suppressing your Tregs, you get breakthrough infection, and people will die with because they can't handle the pain, and growing a new organ. Like if you have a heart transplant, you think you can grow a new organ? I mean, it could happen. I couldn't tell you that for sure. There's no way for me to prove that if you have a transplant, you can do the J juice and activate your immune system, and then. And I don't know. I would be under a doctor's care to do that. To watch somebody go through that would be torturous. When you actually all out take someone's vital organ out, and you're like, hey, yeah, go ahead and try to go regrow it yourself. You wouldn't want to bestow that upon anyone. And that's why the transplant market is so huge, even though it's a black market, but not really, because it ensures then the therapies market ensures biotech to always look after you and then take you out when need be, because when you have something aggressive as this environment, transplant patients are going to have a hard time. They're going to have to be in a closed system, even in their house. Not only have they close themselves up, but they can't be exposed to somebody else, because as soon as they get exposed to someone with an aggressive DNA, they're gone. They're done. They can't be around anyone. They have to wear masks and be in a freaking, chem suit. And so, yeah, so I got to write this down. I'm just like, I got to write this down. So just bear with me here, because I don't have a notebook, because I do everything. All my notes are on my Facebook. I'm a citizen scientist, right? Because that's how I research stuff and focus on stuff and figure out stuff. And so let me add this to this. Okay, so this is this is all organic when you think about it. I mean, is anything really organic? But you know what I mean. This is something, because I think about this even when I'm sleeping. All right. So Tregs induce autophagy, and the redundancy. Okay, so reduce autophagy, which is triggered by a new virus, which is triggered by a hostile, I should put that in quotes, via a hostile takeover from a new virus, like a new company acquiring an old company, and the redundancy is let go and should be escorted out of the building, but in a closed system, the redundant person protein does not leave, but takes up residence in the basement. Like that dude from Office Space. and develops a mutiny, or develops a mirror company trying to convert employees to work for him, not the new. That's exactly. And so resources get diverted. When you have redundancy in your body, resources get diverted to the monster and not to you. That's literally what is going on. Holy crap. And so Tregs induce autophagy. And so autophagy is a degradation that needs to be fulfilled after the redundancy is cast out. Okay. But okay. Okay, and so T cells are the NK natural killer T cells. T cells inducing apoptosis, or programmed cell death, and that is necessary, okay, to maintain self-antigen. All right. Jesus, okay. So now we're seeing all right, so an open system versus a closed system, and why immune suppression is deadly in a closed system. So Tregs induce autophagy, degradation that needs to be fulfilled after the redundancy is cast out, which is triggered by a hostile takeover from a new virus, like a new company acquiring an old company, and the redundancy is let go and should be escorted out of the building, but in a closed system, the redundant person protein does not leave, but takes up residence in the basement, okay, like that dude from Office Space, and develops a mirror company trying to convert employees to work for him, not the new acquisition. And so that's why Office Space is so amazing. It was such a cult classic, because it was definitely, Office Space is just like your body. Okay, you have, your company's doing stuff and processing stuff, and there's business processes, and everybody has their own department and all the cross-functional communication. And then when that business is failing and it needs to be revived, then a new company or a company that's been around longer goes and acquires it, takes it over, and then people are afraid of their jobs, just like they did a whole, there was a whole thing that was going on when those dudes that came in and were analyzing everyone's job description to see if there was anything that they can go in and cut off the fat. And so that guy, I forget his name, the guy in Office Space, Office Space character, MILTON. Yes, MILTON, who was let go, but never actually left, okay? He was in the basement, or he knows in the basement. He he was somewhere he was on the floor, but was never obviously an actual official employee, was on the floor, he was let go, still doing his stuff with his stapler, and then the director, whoever his name is, then then put him in the basement. And that's what happens in people's bodies, is that things that were let go, that were supposed to be let go officially, actually stay in the body and then cause chaos and cause just a bunch of stuff, and then also divert resources away from the actual company. And so you have to bring corporations into this. Corporations are just like your body, and hostile takeovers, and then you have something like an office space. This is so awesome. Okay. All right, hold on. And so T cells are the NK T cells inducing apoptosis or programmed cell death, and that is necessary to maintain self-antigen. All right, so there's 3 laws of thermodynamics. So energy cannot be created or destroyed, only converted. Through the energy conversion process in a closed system, entropy becomes entropy because energy is wasted. So entropy is then the decline, the breaking down, and so that's entropy is autophagy. It breaks down, but it needs to be built back up again. But in a closed system, when you have that redundant material in your body usurping resources, the breaking down process is a continuous process until you reverse that, release all the redundant material in your body, because your body is in a closed system, and you have to feel the inflammatory pains. You have to now activate your immune system. And so that's what the J juice did. That's what the salt water did. It activated people's immune system so the autophagy process could actually finish up. You release the fucking demons, the redundant demons, and then you build your body back up with all the food in the food supply. Okay? The meat, the milk, the cheese, the eggs, the fruits, the vegetables, all this stuff, that's all out there. And then once you release all those demons that do have, then what are the demons? They're redundant material. And that's how I have the antibodies, because antibodies is, and I was writing this down last night as I was going through it process by process and concept by concept. Antibody is just a generic catch-all name for something that is programmed for something, but you don't know how that programming is. So antibodies could be a T cell regulator. It could be a T cell. It could be a B cell. It could be a B cell regulator. I'm not going to go into much. I mean, there's memories. They all have memories, but the T cells and the T cell regulators are the most predominant things that we really need to pay attention to. Okay. I mean, I need to talk about the B cells too. I gotta say that they're like the stem cells and all that shit. But I'll talk about it. But I really had to understand this from a conceptual level. Now, parsing out, even matching Tregs to autophagy, T cells to apoptosis. The redundant material has to leave the body, but it doesn't, because people are cured. People don't want to feel pain. They don't want to release. And so all of that material that has been taken away from that cell through that autophagy process, then it's like, okay, it has memories. And that's what, Audrey, you're dreaming about. When you have the dreams about the rashes and then someone yelling at you saying your rash is coming back or something, that's all the memories that are being released, going through your immune system, going through everything. And so that's what people laugh at in their dreams. That's what when they get night terrors, they have all that crappy material still in their body. That's just like the spirits are possessed. That's where all the exorcisms and stuff and the ghosts. Okay. And I knew when I was having those dreams, I was dreaming about my parents, I was dreaming about weird shit, dreaming about cats and people. And of course, Jungian therapists are going to go in and analyze all your dreams and say, okay, which some of them are correct, because some of the archetypes or the animals like cat and dog, they all are symbolic. They're all symbolistic to specific hormones and then mannerisms and personality traits. And so if you're dreaming about dogs, and that means something. If you dream about cats, that means something. If you dream about boats, that means something because of what they represent in your waking life. And so it's interesting what you can analyze from a person's dream as they're going through the purging process and the rebuilding process. And so these transmissions These neurotransmitters are the most important in this process, because I wouldn't have gotten this if I hadn't done this. Because I was thinking last night, I'm telling you, I was I was writing so much last night before I went to bed, before my dog said, hey, it's time to go to bed, because she was just pacing and pacing and pacing because she's going through her own stuff. And so I wrote the new I wrote the title of the chapter, Born to Live and Born to Die. And come on. And so I'm like, biological fertility, these are all the different subheadings. But definitely I'm going to be introducing, sexual reproduction, meiosis, pandemic. Well, I already have that. I have a term called public microbial conception, when you take on a virus, but you're not actually having sex with someone and creating a baby, but you're creating new viral babies, new infections. And then T cell, B cell, reg, and their regulators playing God and all that stuff. And so I'm pathogen. What is a pathogen? A pathogen is just a programmed antibody going after something, and it could be whatever it wants to be, whatever relative to the programming. And then what is your parents are like now I made an analogy. Your parents are like Tregs and B-regs, because they either veto information or they allow it in. Okay? And so you can actually make a correlation that parents are the Tregs and B-regs, but then who taught the parents? Who taught the Tregs and B-regs? Oh, academia. Who taught academia? Oh, Imhotep and all the movers and shakers of antiquity. We're taking medical advice and life advice from people who are dead. Oh, okay. So you're actually born to die. And so we are the slaves of Egypt. We all are the slaves of Egypt, because we're just a redundancy from the slaves of Egypt, from Imhotep, who practiced all this medicinal torturous shit way back in antiquity, 5,000 years ago. Okay? And so it's time for us to graduate from Imhotep. Hey, Imhotep, it was great knowing you. You were awesome. Thank you for this amazing society. But we got to stop taking advice from you, because you're dead. You've been dead for thousands and thousands of years. It's time now for humans to finally live and realize their potential. But you can't realize your potential in a closed system. You can't realize your potential when you're drugged out, suppressing your immune system. You can't realize your potential when you can't even consider that maybe your lifestyle, your belief system, your politics, your religion, and your scientific dogmas may actually need to be upgraded. And that maybe you need to consider that maybe it's just a control mechanism from Imhotep and everyone that came after him that figured out what he did and what he was doing and how they can control people through their belief systems and through starving them and through inducing antibiotics and causing then the body to go into a replication. See, that's one side of it, is the fertility side of it, using antibiotics. Okay, that causes fertility because the positive and negative come together, but then you have so much diversity that is also in deficit with issues. Then you have a virus, which is a hostile takeover, which is a new parent company coming in and taking over. And then your body goes through an upset of homeostasis and an autophagy process and an apoptosis process. But through that autophagy process, people are not releasing. They would evolve, and they wouldn't need all the antibiotics if they were able to release. The reason people need antibiotics, anti-life, is because they're not releasing. And so then you're compounding all the antibiotics. So when you're in a closed system with antibodies that need to be released, that are torturing you and attacking you because it's not part of the company anymore, then you're taking on another immunotherapy, another antibiotic to stop that, and it becomes an ongoing thing of one antibiotic going after another antibiotic, going after another antibiotic, going after another antibiotic, and then you have 1,000 antibiotics in your system with programming that's working against you. No wonder people are self-imploding. No wonder people are freaking like overstimulated, and they have cognitive issues and neurological issues, and so they're Down syndrome or autistic, or they're suffering MS or suffering all these neurological diseases, or people are just not getting it and they're so slow, which is the same thing. And it's just like, humans are a mess. Humans are a fucking mess right now because of a closed system with vast amounts of antibiotics that have been applied to them ever since Imhotep. And then we keep dying and reproducing on bodies in deficit. warranting the medical system to go in and do a nip and a tuck and another fucking immunotherapy and another freaking antibiotic. And then you wonder why we have serial killers and people like that. All right, so, and I wrote like 12 pages last night. Okay, because I was like, oh, I gotta write a whole chapter now because this is some new information. And so, but I had to talk about the Tregs and the B-regs because that is the most important, and autophagy and apoptosis, and understand it from the microbial, from the most infinitesimal mechanism, and then understanding the relationship between autophagy and the Tregs, and then NKT cells and apoptosis. And where does the garbage go? Where does the redundancy go? Turns into MILTON in Office Space and his stapler. Okay, bye.